Hi there. Well, it's been a while since we've been out. We've been in kind of a holding pattern waiting for our Patriot X3 trailer. It has made it to the US, but Customs decided to inspect the container that it's in, so we're just waiting for it to get out of Customs and get its way up to Oklahoma to Exploration Outfitters. In the meantime, we decided to come out to Anza Borrego for the day today, and a couple of people have asked I do a walk around of the rig, and hey, this sounded like a good time. So I'm gonna first talk about a few things I think should be done to any rig if you want to turn it into something that you want to take off-road. Everybody's got an opinion. You also have to consider budgets, but this is what I would do. First of all, I think you got to get rid of street tires and put on a decent off-roading tire. Here, we're running 33s. They're on a 17-inch rim. It's a black Rhino Mint. They don't make that rim anymore, but why 17 inches? Well, we bought this 4Runner used actually, and it came with those rims. And we toyed with the idea of maybe going to 35s, and if we did, we would have changed the rim size, but so far we've been happy with the 33s. The tires themselves are 33 by 12.5 Toyo mud terrains. So that 12.5 makes it what's called a flotation tire, but more importantly, the 12.5 turns it into a load range E as in Echo, instead of your standard load range D as in Delta, which means the sidewall is a little heavier duty. And one of my concerns in off-roading, not so much as getting a puncture in the tire, because that can be easily repaired with a puncture kit. It's actually getting a tear in the sidewall, which means the tire is done, you have to move your spare in, and now you no longer have a spare. And if you're on a long trip, you don't want to have to do that if you don't have to. So I'm very happy with these tires. They have about a roughly 35, 40,000 mile lifespan. They're doing pretty good for us. The lifespan on a tire is really kind of dependent upon how much grip it has. For example, the BFG KM3 is a tire known for having amazing grip on the rocks, but it has a very short lifespan, 20, 25,000 miles from what I've been able to find out on research. It's kind of a trade-off. If you want super good gription on the rock, you're gonna get a softer compound and the tire's gonna wear out faster. If you go with something like a KO2, KO2s last, man, we had KO2s on our Land Cruisers. They lasted almost 80,000 miles. Great tire, but it's a harder compound, so you're gonna lose a little bit of grip on the rocks. Toyos so far have been a great balance between the two as far as I'm concerned. Very, very happy with them. The noise on the road isn't too bad either, so that's what we're running with right now, and we're gonna stick with these. Next would be the suspension. So on this vehicle, we have an Icon Stage 7, which has, you can adjust the amount of dampening from 0 to 10 on these. So depending upon the terrain that you're in and your load and where things are at, you can balance that out and get the dampening set right. We also have a secondary shock up front here, also made by Icon. So that's a pretty nice setup we have up front with a 2.5-inch lift. In the back, we have the single Icon suspension and their heavy-duty 3-inch overlanding springs. And then inside of that, we added airlift airbags, because we do have a lot of weight on the rear end of this vehicle. And with the trailer coming as well, there'll be a little bit more weight on the back end. So we put the airbags in, and they've been fantastic. They're Bluetooth controlled from my phone inside the car. Around town, I run on about 10 PSI because it's heavy in the back anyway. And we can take it up to about 30 PSI. The bags have been fantastic, really happy with that. Okay, so suspension, tires and suspension, that's really kind of an important place to start in my opinion. The next thing would be protection. It's really easy to do some expensive damage to your vehicle if it's not protected. So I would add protection to the car. One of the easiest things that you can add are rock sliders. They just bolt right in. They're not that expensive. If you were to dent the car here, you're looking at thousands of dollars of body damage compared to a few $100s for the rock sliders. These rock sliders are made by Bud Built, very popular 4 or 5 years ago when they got put on. Very happy with them. They have been used and without any problems. Underneath, made by Schrockworks, who made the front end bumper. We'll get to that in a minute. The vehicle is armored all the way back. So the front diff, the oil pan, the gas tank, and the rear differential are all armored. At a minimum, you want to make sure your oil pan is protected. You don't want to break your oil pan when you're out in the middle of nowhere. I highly recommend getting some armor on the vehicle. You don't have to go all the way back. That gives me peace of mind, but adds a lot of weight to the vehicle. But I do recommend that. Next up, we're going to come around and we're going to talk about the front end of the vehicle. Okay, let's talk about the front bumper. We have a Schrockworks front bumper on this. It's steel. I love this bumper. It's really solid. I never felt the need to cover the front headlights. And one of the things I like about the Schrockworks was the way it fit right around the headlight nicely. Really nice aesthetics, which not necessarily important in an off-road vehicle, but it doesn't hurt. Back behind the bumper, we have a Warn Xenon Platinum 10S Bluetooth. It's a 10,000 pound winch with synthetic line, and on the end of it is a Factor 55 Pro Link. Down here, we have the amber lights that are made by Rigid. And also right here in the front is a bar light. This is also an amber light, which I really like a lot. It's also made by Rigid. The amber light is just great, particularly out in the desert. It really gives you a little better sense of depth of field when you're driving just after sunset and at those hours. But in general, I really like this a lot. The bar light up on top is also Rigid. I'm not real thrilled with it because it reflects off the hood a lot. Honestly, I have LED headlights and high beams that I mounted into the vehicle, took out the original halogens. These LED high beams are just about as bright as that bar up there without the reflection off the hood. So I don't use the bar. I use the bar more during the daytime to just give side-by-sides or other vehicles that are coming in the opposite direction a good heads up that I'm coming their way. Over here, we have the Safari snorkel going into the side, made in Australia, no problems with it. This thing works great. One of the great things about a snorkel, it's not just for water crossings. If I'm with a large group of vehicles, say going across the desert, and a lot of dust is being picked up, the dust tends to stay a little bit lower, and the snorkel really allows for a lot cleaner air to come into the engine. We did a trip a few years ago on the Mojave Road with about 18 other vehicles, and we were at the very back because we had one of the better radios to talk to the guy up in front. When we were done with that trip, there really wasn't a lot of dust collected in the air filter. It was just amazing. So these things work great, and of course I've had a few deep water crossings and really need to have it for that. Next, we're going to look under the hood. Back in a minute. Okay, under the hood, really the only thing that you're going to see that's modified are two things, is the intake for the snorkel, and then we have a secondary battery system. Here's the primary battery over here, and over here is the secondary battery. To put the secondary battery in along with the snorkel, the window washer tank needed to be replaced. This is made by Schrockworks. It's a steel tank. It's all part of their secondary battery install system. So it was all one package, if you will. Also over here, well, you can see I have a heavy duty fuse here. That's because I have wiring that goes into the back of the vehicle, which I'll get to in just a minute, but that's the first fuse in that system. That's a 100 amp fuse right there. And over here we have some switch blocks for the and fuses, extra fuses for some of the accessories on the car, the lighting and things like that. And then over here, if I can get that shown up, is the controller that controls the switching between the secondary and the primary battery and ensuring that they both have equal charge. And also, that's what allows me to, if the primary battery dies, I can start the car off the secondary battery. That's only happened once to me so far, but it was out in the middle of nowhere in Death Valley, and it's very handy having that secondary battery. Virtually everything other than the standard items that come with the vehicle, virtually everything else is run off the secondary battery. All the outside lighting, all the additional accessories we've put on, all run off the accessory battery. Okay, let's talk about the back end real quickly. We have a CBI steel rear bumper. Attached to that, also made by CBI, is the dual swing arm. I like the dual swing arm because it just doesn't take up a lot of space when you want to swing. So if things are a little bit tight, it's really not a big deal at all. This rack here is also made by CBI to hold 5 gallons of water, 5 gallons of fuel. So that's been working out really well. We keep that locked. Over here on this side, we have the spare tire mount. And then we have 4 MaxTrax that are held on with the MaxTrax spare tire mount. And this thing works great, no problems with it at all. I also loop a lock through here, so if we leave the vehicle unattended, I feel pretty good the MaxTrax aren't gonna walk away. Also, this is one of the things I really like about the CBI. This table, it gets a lot of use, particularly when I'm out on my own. I do a lot of my cooking right here. It works great. So I love this table. Going up top real fast, this ladder is made by Gobi, as is the rack up top. We have 2 lights that are made by Rigid. Those are my back-facing lights. So vehicles can see me when they're coming, particularly if it's dusty or if I'm in a long train of vehicles. Always keep those on. So if there's visibility for the vehicle if somebody's approaching quicker than I'm moving. Down below, we have 2 more Rigid lights mounted on each side. The Rigid lights are tied in just with the reverse system, so in the evening if I'm backing up and it's dark, just gives me a little extra lighting from just the standard rear backup lights. Over here on the side, you've seen this in use in some of our other videos. It's a 23-0 270-degree awning. We absolutely love this awning. It's fantastic. It is extremely well made. We also have 2 walls for it. If you saw our first Colorado video when we went over Imogene Pass, we had it set up with both the walls in some light rain, and you could see the setup was just fantastic. We had a heater inside and really made things quite comfortable. So very, very happy with this. Okay, so next I think we'll talk about what's underneath the car and have a look there. And we'll see in a second. Underneath, here in the back, we have a Long Range America 23-gallon extended gas tank. This has been fantastic. It connects into the primary tank and has a pump between the two. And on the dash in the vehicle, I just push a button and it pumps fuel out of this tank and puts it in the primary tank. So that means I'm now running 47 gallons of gas in the vehicle, which gives me great range and takes away some of that concern about running out of fuel when you're in the middle of nowhere. So much better than having just a 5-gallon jerry can. Also, if you can see in front of that tank is the differential. The differential gearing has been changed in the vehicle. We're running 488 gears now in both the front and rear. That's been fantastic. It gives me a lot more torque. It hasn't really hurt that much on the highway, running 70 miles an hour and running about 2,500 RPM, which is really more or less in the power range of the vehicle. So puts me in the middle of that power band. It's been great off-roading. I don't have to go down a low range as often as I used to. It's just been fantastic. On the inside of the car, let's start with communications. Debbie and I are both licensed amateur radio operators, hams, and we use an ICOM 5100 radio. That's essentially 2 radios built into one, so we can run on different bands at the same time, or we can run on the same band at the same time on 2 different frequencies. It also has digital radio built into it and weather information. I've had the radio a number of years and it's worked flawlessly. I'm very happy with it. We're looking at the head unit right now, and the main part of the radio is mounted on the floor of the vehicle underneath the driver's seat. As we move down from there, you can see that we have switches down here which control the outside lights of the vehicle. So on the vehicle we have 2 lights that are mounted on the sides up on the roof facing out sideways. One of them is blocked by the awning on the driver's side. Then the other lights that I've talked about already, the front bar light, the top bar light, the rear facing lights. And I also have 4 rock lights underneath the vehicle, which I hadn't mentioned. They're all controlled by those switches. On the interior of the vehicle, in the back, we have molly racks made by Cali Raised. Another modification I made to the vehicle is I've added some power connections back here. I have 2 Anderson power poles that are putting out 12 volts, and then I have a USB-A and USB-C that are putting out 12 volts as well. And then down here, this is 24 volts, which is essentially simulating a solar panel. So I can plug my portable lithium battery into this and recharge that. The solar controller is built into the lithium battery, so it just works fine. So I can charge this while we're driving during the day if I want to charge that cube. That cube's really useful for charging all the electronics we have at night. Plus I can still charge from here as well. There's the main power switch for this is right here. So that turns on and off the power to all the rear electronics. And I also have added a few more of those on this side of the vehicle, down here. In addition to the cigarette lighter, there's a 110 volt outlet that came with the vehicle. So that's a Toyota standard option. And then I again added a USB-C and USB-A and 2 more Anderson power poles down here. Well, that's it for the rig walk around. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions at all, just leave them down in the comments section and I'll get back to you. Also, you might enjoy watching some of these videos or any of the others we have on the channel. And if you're new to the channel, please remember to subscribe and a like. It really helps small channels like us out a lot. So we really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you on our next adventure right here on Adventure Beyond 60.